Welcome to the Hop Edition podcast, brought to you in association with The Malt Miller, your go-to choice for premium homebrewing ingredients and equipment. Whether you're a beginner starting out or an experienced brewer, The Malt Miller has got you covered. So for top quality products and customer service, jump over to themaltmiller.co.uk and tell them the Hop Edition sent you. We would also like to thank all our Patreons for their continued support with running and developing the pod. If you would like to become a member and gain access to exclusive perks and benefits, head over to patreon.com/The Hop Edition. Now it's time to get this pod started, so crack open a homebrew and enjoy the episode.
Good evening, you wonderful humans. Welcome to episode 102 of the Hop Edition podcast. Tonight we're talking to these two amazing gentlemen. We've got Phil Nutt and we've got Paul Malcolm from WHC Labs, and they're going to be talking to us. Well, we're going to be making them drink some of our beer, and we're also going to be talking to them about all things yeast and hopefully getting hopping pills back on the menu. And aside from that, you see, got it in the first three lines. I'm skilled, me. We're also gonna be drinking some of our beers that we've made using their new yeast, Pineapple Passion, which is just a phenomenal yeast. All right, I absolutely adore it, and I'll be honest, I'm gonna be getting quite a lot more of that yeast because it's that good. And we're maybe even going to be identifying some similarities with each of the beers that we're going to drink that are going to represent what it is that the yeast brings to it. I already know what it's brought in my beer. I haven't drunk any of the other guys' beers, so couldn't tell you about that one. But WHC Labs, for those of you who don't know, they are a premier yeast producer. They're based in Ireland, as you'll get when Phil starts talking. And they produce a massive range of both dried and liquid yeasts, and yeah, I absolutely adore their stuff. I think it's really, really good yeast. But before we get into all of that, before we start talking about all of that, we've got to say a huge thank you to our primary sponsor, our major sponsor, our partner sponsor, the Malt Miller, the premier supplier for everything homebrew and for some things barbecue and for other things that you want to buy. They've got everything on their website.
Coffee
as well. I don't drink it, but someone else might. Swing by their website, check out their amazing range of stock. While you're there, check out the Hop Edition recipe section, where there's some recipes that we've added, some stuff that we've got from amazing guests that we've had on the podcast as well. But also, right now, they've got a whole tranche, see, dropping in French words now, a whole tranche of amazing Black Friday offers that have just gone live on their website. Hit them up because there's some real bargains on there, guys.
Yeah.
So, before we go any further, say hi, Phil and Paul. How's it going?
Hi, how's it going?
Good evening, good evening.
And as you may have noticed by those accents, we've added two more countries to the two that we already cover on the podcast. We are now multinational. And yeah, so before we go any further, what we do is we normally whip round a table and we do a what are you drinking? 30 seconds, keep it short, tell us what it is. We're going to come to Paul first because he wasn't expecting it and he's got an amazing beard.
Yeah, absolutely was not expecting that. Thanks, firstly, for the warm welcome. I've actually lined up 3 of your 4 brews in front of me tonight. One of them is arriving on Monday, according to the postman. So I'll have some Monday morning catching up to do for sure. Haven't cracked them yet. Was waiting for the tastings to officially start.
Do you not have a starter beer?
The last beer I drank today was a Samphire Goza from Farmyard Brewing in Lancaster. Hand-picked Samphire Goza. It was delicious, but it's gone. Ooh. So we're waiting to crack yours.
Sounds good. Phil, what are you drinking, buddy?
It's a bit of a long story, so I don't know if I can get it done in 30 seconds.
Go for it.
Okay, so basically there's a brewery that got in touch with us from Reunion Island, which is part of France, but nowhere near France. And they basically have found a yeast strain that's very nice, tropical fruit yeast strain and stuff like that. And I've been talking to them for a couple of months about it because we're always on the lookout for something new and innovative and something a little bit different to bring to market. But they got in contact with us because they heard of the name. So they basically, I think it was last year, they isolated this yeast strain from a flower that is only on that island. I don't. It's in French, so I can't speak French. But yeah, they isolated it, and now they've sent us a slant of it, and we just started working on it. But then they said to us that they did a collab with a brewery in France using that strain. So they sent us some beers from the French breweries. So this is actually the first time that I'm trying the beer. So we're gonna hope to work with them on testing it out and hopefully commercializing it. So it's something interesting, and it's probably an Irish first that I've drank it anyway.
Nice. You're on mute, Chris.
Of course I'm on mute because I was having a vape. Sounds awesome. I love it. Sounds ace. They found it on a flower in France. Well, a French island. But they found it on a flower and they decided this will make great beer.
That's it. Yeah, they actually it's not as rare as you would think. We have a lot of we're a little bit smaller than our competitors, so we're a little bit flexible. So we work with a lot of actually distilleries. That's kind of, we do a lot of brewing and distilling, mostly whiskey industry, and we have a lot of distilleries that have gotten in touch with us, being like, we found this interesting yeast, or we want to use yeast from like the local terroir. So like there's like for instance, there's a big whiskey distillery in Romania, Alexandrian Group, and their business started with, they make wine from a Romanian grape. And the Romanian grape, I think it's called, I'll probably butcher the pronunciation, but it's Viasca Nigra, and it's only grown in Romania. They have a big wine business that they grow on these grapes, but they found they use like the natural yeast to make the wine with. And now when they started the distillery, they wanted to bring that into the whiskey making process. So we basically took some of the freshly pressed juice from the winemaking, and now we've kind of cultured it up and we provide it to them to use with their whiskey yeast, and it adds like a different flavor to their like a unique flavor to their malt whiskey then.
That's cool.
That's handy going off to find some Romanian whiskey to drink then. Amazing.
Yeah.
All right then, Owen, let's continue with the what we drinking. What you got on, Owen?
Right, I'm drinking my sort of hazy pale ale that I made with WHC Sweet Release. So I thought I'd pour this, given it was made with a WHC yeast, which is a thiol releasing, low attenuating yeast, and it's actually tasting pretty good. I've ended up getting like quite a lot of sort of apple, white grape vibes, I think, from the yeast, from the files. Thanks, Rich, helping me out there. It's been a long day.
Yeah, I know.
And yeah, I actually really enjoyed the beer. It's really good. Apart from the fact I've got way too many hazy beers on tap. That seems to be the only style of beer I seem to have on tap. I've gone hazy mad. What are you going to do?
I mean, you could give me a shout and I'll send you some hopping pills.
Yeah, I need some lager in my life.
Everybody needs lager in their life. Tricky, what you got, bro?
Well, I've got an antidote to the hazies. I've got a big old school Westie. I'll continue the theme of integrating some WHC yeast into this one, because this is brewed with LAX, which I've used for a couple of beers, and yeah, works really well to give you that sort of old school classic, nice dry, crisp sort of American style finish. And it's got it's based around the or uses the elusive Oregon Trail as a framework. So it's got Chinook and Flex in it early, and then some Citra Equinaut, and then I went a bit off piste and put some Rawaka Mosaic in it as well towards the end. So, but it's really got that real old school, like piney, resiny, very bitter. quite tasty and dangerously drinkable for 6.7% because that yeast definitely attenuates well because it came down a little bit lower than I was expecting. So it's ended up quite a pokey beer, but really pleased how the yeast has gone in that and the other American pale ale I've used it in. So yeah, giving you some cred for that one already.
Sounds awesome.
Thank you.
Andy, what we got, bro?
I have got a Czech Pils that I made with decoction, and it's got hopping pills as a yeast. It is.
Who knew?
It's a setup here.
It's a setup.
Might be
Honestly,
a bit of one.
Wait, and we're telling all the homebrewers as well that hopping pills is just so good because it leaves a bit of that sort of residual sweetness to a lager. So this one finished at 10-11 and came out 5% overall. I did the whole cold fermenting type where it was like I tried 9 degrees, but actually this one was much better at 10, and then I slowly then reduced it to like down to 6 and then down to 3 basically at the end sort of thing. So it's been about 6 weeks in tank, and it is so tasty. It's like honey, that sort of what you expect. And so yeah, I'm super chuffed with it. Yep.
That sounds awesome. I love the glass, by the way. The glass looks amazing. I put a little order into the malt miller, and after our conversation with Rob Neal on episode 100 about, Joe was on as well. I don't want to disrespect Joe because she scares me. But after talking to him, he mentioned about when he was over doing the hop selection over in Portland, and he was drinking all of these fresh hopped beers. Well, I think he must have brought a few back because he sent me a can of Great Nation, which is a fresh hopped 7% hazy IPA by Overripe Brewery, I think is the way. No, it's Great Nation Brewery and Barrel House, and the beer's called Overripe. Why wouldn't you put the name of the beer on the front? But anyway, it's got Dios del Muerta on the back, which I think is awesome, and this beer is absolutely amazing.
That's so good.
It tastes like literal, very alcoholic fruit juice. It's so fresh, and the smell, as soon as I cracked it, the smell, just that aroma I don't even know what yeast this was made with, I'll be honest, but my God, is it epic. It's just so super fruity. It's like umbongo, just with a bit of alcohol in it, and it's thick, and it's really, really amazingly good. So, Mr. Neal from the Malt Miller, thank you very much. What a beer! I mean, what a beer! Outstanding. So there we go. So we've all done what we're drinking. I think it's time to hand over to you two wonderful humans from WHC. So, tell us a bit about WHC.
I suppose we're an Irish company, so we started in 2017. We are involved in the brewing and distilling industry. We're a little bit different because we do liquid and dried yeast, so we have a lot of different options. We do liquid and dried yeast for the beer and the distilling industry, so there's actually quite a lot of liquid yeast use in the distilling industry. So I suppose people use, I think especially in the UK, we have a lot of breweries that use our yeast, and then we also have a lot of distilleries that use our yeast for whiskey production, but probably the beer stuff gets more hype behind it. So it's an interesting industry. So we've been when we came online, we did a lot of strains that are readily available in the market, but last 2 years we've been really trying to create our own niche, bring our own strains to market, stuff that's interesting, stuff that's kind of on point with what brewers are looking for or consumers are looking for. So like we've been doing lots of work on lager this year because I went to CBC in April and everybody was drinking lagers. I was drinking lagers. It was fantastic. So we're bringing a lot of stuff to market, because a lot of our customers now that would have just only done like hazy IPAs. They're trying to release kind of a lot more lager styles and stuff like that. So this has been the year of the lager for us, but we still managed to bring out Mango Madness and Pineapple Passion in the middle of that. So not just lagers. So.
No, it's a good one. I've used Mango Madness. That was a great yeast as well, and we'll get on to Pineapple Passion in a little while. So where's your factory and the various sites that you guys have? Because clearly you have more than one.
We only have one production site at the moment. So that's in Wicklow in Ireland. We also use a few other sites as well in Ireland for various different production. But we also have like warehouses that like hold, say, store liquid yeast for distribution. Say we have one in Portsmouth for the UK market. We just opened up a warehouse in the US, and we are looking at setting up an Indian distribution network as well, because the distilling industry is getting quite big over there as well. So it's growing very fast. Sometimes it's hard to keep up to date with what's going on.
What sort of quantities are you guys kind of working at the moment in terms of, you know, production runs and how much you're kind of shipping and all that kind of stuff? Because obviously we see it from a very small little, you know, homebrew scale packet at our end of the market, and clearly, you know, you must be doing a lot more than that as far as professional sales go and everything.
I'd say the one thing that people don't realize is there's a huge difference in usage between brewing and distilling. So like we would have a lot more volume that goes to distilling industry. So
okay.
You know, like a medium sized distillery, they might use like 20-30 kilos of yeast a month, whereas like we have distilleries in Ireland that are using like 1 to 2 tons of dried yeast a month.
Wow.
So yeah, and then
that's big.
We have kind of people that be supplying in Scotland that without mentioning names, they'd be taking usually what you find is in larger distilleries, they take liquid yeast. They'd be looking at taking tankers of liquid yeast. They'd use 22,000 liters a week.
Yeah.
Tankers?
Yeah.
Like dude in a truck towing a big thing that looks like a pill with ladders on it.
Yeah, it's really common. So like it's just because there's no repitching or reusing generally in whiskey production. So it's now in Scotland they can't use enzymes, but in Ireland you can use enzymes. Sorry, we came onto a beer podcast. I'm just talking about whiskey.
No, it's fascinating.
Don't worry about
it. That's good.
Generally speaking, like the high alcohol, fast fermentation, the heat of the fermentation, it means the yeast is in a really bad state. So it's generally not reused. Also, in
because they tend to use that 12% sort of. Is that the beer that they make? It's like it's that sort of higher strength, isn't it?
Exactly, yeah, and it's like it's got loads of like because they're not using hops, so.
Yeah.
You get a lot more lactobacillus in it. Some of them are using like wooden fermenters and stuff like that. So there's no way you can keep it clean. And they don't really want to keep it clean because, you know, when you're making whiskey wash, if you get like, you know, like lactobacillus growing in it, people don't want it in their beer unless they're making sour beers, right? But in distilling, if you get like lactobacillus growing in the wash, that lactic acid, when you're doing distilling, that lactic acid actually brings out citrus and like tropical fruit in the resulting spirit. So like a lot of them love the infection. So yeah, like in terms of volumes, like I think a good bit of it's for distilling, and then a lot more kind of industrial stuff as well. But I think it's hard to quantify sometimes.
Wow. There is the first question of the podcast. You know, we told you about Santa. Santa wants to know when you're going to send stuff to the Scandinavian market.
We do. We have a distributor for homebrew in Norway. I can't pronounce the name.
He's in Sweden, like the very far north of. Basically, he is Santa.
We have breweries in Sweden that use our yeast, and we have like next day delivery in Sweden, but I don't think there's any homebrew shops that have our yeast in. But if they ask the homebrew shop, they can get in touch with us, and then we can supply them.
There you go, Santa. That's what you need to do.
Express
So, yeah.
delivery to North Pole, yeah?
That's it. Yeah, or they could just buy a 500. I think you can actually buy 500-gram blocks as well if they wanted to split them up. It's pretty common. We have home brewers that do that the odd time, or clubs or something like that.
Or Andy just buys them for himself. I wish I was making that up, but I'm really not.
No,
So
I've saturated and all sorts.
From a scientific standpoint, how is QC managed within your sort of your production facilities and stuff like that? Because there have been some that we've used from, let's say, nameless companies where the QC's not been brilliant, and you've bought something that's supposed to be a Kolsch yeast and ends up tasting like banana.
Nothing to do with the brewing, by the way.
No, absolutely not. The guy who did this
Couldn't possibly be that, Owen.
Is it repackaging you shot?
No. Listen, hear this one out, right? So this guy bought some Kolsch yeast from a company. Clearly, it wasn't a Kolsch yeast, because when he brewed with it, it gave massive banana flavour in his beer. And I wish I was making this up, but this guy is a former head brewer for a brewery. He's also worked in many different breweries. He knows his stuff. He's no idiot. He knows how to take care of yeast, but QC is very important. I was asked to ask this question, so.
Well, we have our own lab in-house. So we do a lot of we grow all the yeast, from -80. We have different slant, like I was saying earlier about, we also have our strains, but we also have a lot of breweries' house cultures and stuff like that. So it's not just what you would see on the website. So we basically have like a frozen cell bank. So all the yeast is kept at -80. And then what we do is we grow up everything from start to finish. And then what you do is you do a series of tests to make sure like it's single strain, there's no contaminants. We do a lot of plating. We also do a lot of genetic testing as well. The other thing that we do a lot of is that we use external labs as well, which I think is one of our biggest advantages, because we have partnerships with like 2 like big accredited labs in Europe that are really famous for brewing. They're I suppose you call them like knowledge centers. And what we do is they provide like an independent service. So like when we produce yeast, we get all the lots tested, and then we also send them to 2 other independent people to make sure everybody's like on the same page. So otherwise it's like our own lab testing our own yeast, and you could say, oh, everything's great, no problems. But like having the independent auditors essentially make sure that it keeps everybody on their toes, everybody checking everyone. So we
You've
feel
got
we're
the
really
GLP
covered.
practice and stuff. So yeah, that's good.
Yeah,
that's good. Now, I can just tell you right now, you've just sold a lot more yeast to this guy. Like just with those few sentences, you've sold more yeast to this guy.
Yeah.
And what about strain development? How do you go about doing that?
I
I don't want the ins and outs. I'm not trying to steal company info. I'm just,
we usually because most of our volume would go to commercial, right? So we would usually look for a commercial need for something, or a commercial interest for something. So you start off with like a problem, and then you look for a solution. Or maybe it's not a problem, maybe it's something that something would be interested in. So say like we're just about to release like the dried Blitz lager, and that was basically, like I touched on earlier, we have a lot of breweries that were started and they produce a lot of New England IPAs, right? But now they want to produce some lager for the local pub, or they get England did well in the Euros, so then all of a sudden people want lager, all that kind of stuff. So like, but they're not really set up for like making a traditional lager takes 8 weeks, 9 weeks, 10 weeks, 12 weeks. So like we're looking for solutions that are like more of a so that was say a problem, and then we developed strains that kind of scratch that itch, that it's like, okay, well, can we make lagers that are just as good, just as crispy, but using less time, so people don't have to tie up their whole brewery trying to make lagers for a certain event or a certain customer, that sort of thing. Because the problem is, cost of capital is very expensive. You guys well know, you all read the newspapers, that a lot of breweries have struggled and closed and stuff like that. So like people don't have like £1 million in their back pocket that they can decide, I'm going to produce lager, so I'm going to bring in 20 more tanks and expand the brewery and stuff like that. So instead we've developed strains that they can use different strains to get just as good of a product and get it produced in a more timely manner, which is probably not a very German traditional way of looking at it, but
Nice.
We've just had a question in the chat, which I'm going to leave. Warm Hug Fermentations. I'm going to leave that for a little while until we get later on in the pod, but I will mark it for follow up. Okay.
So yeah, that was a question specific to Pineapple Passion, which is
officially been starred now.
We've started. Well done. Didn't know you could do that.
Neither did I till just now.
Awesome. So listen, that was really useful. Thanks for the kind of the background in terms of WHC. Just to kind of move us on to the main part of the podcast, which Chris alluded to at the beginning, which is kind of the frame of the podcast. And I'll give a little bit of background. So, Phil, Paul, someone was very kind enough to provide one of the newest yeasts, Pineapple Passion, to the malt miller. And they very kindly passed it on to us. And they asked us whether we would be willing to make some beers with that yeast, which we have duly done. So we're actually going to be drinking those beers on the podcast tonight. So we've all made a beer. The Hop Edition guys, we've sent those out. Unfortunately, I think there may have been a bit of a logistical issue for Phil. Phil may not have the beers.
I don't have the beers.
Yeah, I'm sorry about that.
Sorry, Phil.
That's all right.
We didn't get your address. That was the thing. Yeah.
We let you down on that front, trying to get those out to Ireland. I think Paul's got some of the beers. He's got 3, but one's missing. I'm not sure which one's missing.
Paul?
3 of the 4. This one is labelled Dewsbury. Got that.
Yeah, that's my one.
Yeah, got High Road. Got a blank bottle. This could easily be a prank.
Yeah, that's one.
Black Top.
I think that was mine.
Yeah, that'll be
that was mine.
That's missing then.
And then nothing else. Sorry, Chris.
Mine didn't make it.
No, I don't think so.
Yours was literally signed for as having been delivered.
Oh.
You might want to nip outside and check your bins, mate.
Yeah, someone's nicked that off the steps then, maybe. But no, I had a slip to say that a parcel was missed at some point this morning, so I guess that was it. Unfortunately, I'll catch up on Monday.
Oh wow. Okay. Well, I mean, enjoy it on Monday. Just don't tell Phil that you're drinking while you work.
Yeah.
The
Monday morning breakfast.
He goes to all these events, working events, beer festivals.
It's a hard life.
Okay.
It's a hard life.
I mean,
Tough times.
Tough times, man. Tough times.
Well, you're not the only one that's missed out on a beer because I didn't get Trickies. That didn't arrive for me, so we might be missing a few beers here and there.
Logistical failures by Royal Mail.
Yeah, sadly the case. But the idea, I guess, is we wanted to experiment with this new yeast, which when we were given it, I think that was almost even pre-released to the market. This has been in the planning for a little while. Before we ask Phil and Paul to tell us a bit more about the yeast, let's tell our listeners about what beers we actually made. So we'll have a quick rundown. So what have we actually got in bottle, guys? Andy, you want to go first?
Yeah, do it in order of the beers that we're...
Yeah, so the original plan with this was to make a 1060 starting gravity with a 1020 and have it come out at 5.3. Except I think I don't know, we've chatted it in with separately. I think we maybe even spoke with the malt mill about this one where I was mashing in and underletting, and because it was a 72 degree C mash, I think because I heat the mash water up really hot because of the big pot, the 20 gal pot, it saps all the heat. But I think I denatured the enzymes quite a bit, and then that's what's really affected my efficiency. So it's ended up a 3.5% beer. Now I was kind of lucky because it was a super low IBU, where it was hop dipped with Eldorado, and then I dry hopped with Citra and Nelson, and it was like 100 grams or so of each. So it's actually turned out quite nice. It's okay. It's maybe a little bit. I would have liked a bit more alcohol on it, sort of thing, but it's okay. That was mine.
Cool.
Tricky, you're next.
Yep. So I did mine based around the sort of framework for my Track Sonoma clone, and just changed up the hops and obviously the yeast that I would normally use in that one as well. So I've used the same base recipe, but I've gone with Citra and Eldorado in the Whirlpool, and I've gone with more Citra and Eldorado, but also a packet of Brew One Spectrum, which I actually picked up at the Love and Beer thing, I think, just after I'd spoken to Paul about using the yeast for this beer. And reading up on it, I was like, I'll look at some hops that have got some, pineapple notes to try and play off what maybe the yeast might bring. And Brew One is one of the hops that is supposedly quite pineapple forward, or can be. Some people say Eldorado a little bit, but I think that's more of a kind of candy, kind of watermelon thing for me, but it should work. And then obviously Citra's just Citra and it goes in everything. So that's what I did. So yeah, it came out sort of session kind of hazy strength, ended up at 4.2%. I found it was quite an aggressive yeast, so it still attenuated down fairly well, even with a 72-degree mash. So I think I ended up about 10-15. So I've got 4.2%. So it's still nice session strength, but just a little bit, very slightly higher than what I had targeted. So yeah, that's what I did for my one.
That was lush, Tricky. Looking forward to trying that. I decided to go West Coast with mine. So I made a West Coast IPA with Citra, Idaho 7, little sprinkling of Chinook and Talus in there as well. I agree with Tricky. I actually mashed it 65, and it came in, I think, a good 4 points lower than what I was expecting. So it came in at the ABV's come in at 6.4%. So it's quite a heavy hitting beer. I was, I think, targeting 5.8. But yeah, it's tasting pretty good. Hope you guys enjoy it.
Awesome.
Just to add, sorry, Chris, before you start, just to talk, the guys were talking about how it was attenuating a little bit more, but obviously I'd mashed at that higher temp and it was 10-13 it had finished. So I think mash temp would definitely help if you want a bit more body sort of thing with sweetness.
Cool.
Chris?
So I hit mine with my standard nipple base, which if you haven't listened to the podcast before, you won't get, but Tricky thinks that, I don't brew lagers because he's a bit strange. So I went with Pilsner and Vienna for my standard base, and then basically threw a shitload of Idaho 7 and Talus at my beer. It's come out at 4.7%, and it's ended up absolutely bang on the numbers at 10.08 with 32 IBUs in it. It's I'm proud of this beer. I really like it. But obviously, you guys will have to. Well, Paul will have to make his own decision on Monday.
Yeah.
So I'm actually leaving myself really out here in the wind because only Owen, Tricky, and Andy have actually got this. And to be fair, they're known for being quite harsh to me.
Nah.
Yeah.
If it's good, Chris, I'll let you know. If it's
You might like
also
it, Chris, but we'll be the judges of that.
Yeah, I think it's a very flavourful beer compared to some of the stuff that I normally make. So yeah, it's superb. So essentially, what we're going to do is we're going to drink these beers in turn in the order that we've just given them.
Yeah.
And then we're going to give a bit of a review, quality, flavour, conclusions on that sort of stuff, perception and all that sort of stuff. And yeah, it might be a bit of a challenge across so many different beer styles, but this is what we do. We'll take something, we'll literally throw it at a wall and say, right, you brew what you want, you brew what you want, you brew what you want. We'll see what is the commonality, what is the common factor that comes out of this one. But I think I speak with Tricky when he said that it absolutely churned through that beer.
It was rapid.
Oh,
It was
yeah,
definitely
rapid.
rapid.
And did you guys like
At 6 hours later, and it was chugging away.
Yeah, did you pull the vent pin on the top of your fermenter mid ferment? I had a good sniff, you know. I had a good snort out of that thing, and my God, were the flavors it was kicking off amazing.
Yeah,
That's
no, it
why I love
smelled
this
the
beer. It was
garage.
beautiful.
Yeah, the garage did smell good.
Yeah, it was a really good one. So, Phil, you're just gonna have to drink whatever's in front of you, mate.
I'm drinking the flower yeast beer. It's
Yeah.
actually very good. I'll at the end I'll tell you the name of the brewery when my French pronunciation gets better.
We'll
Try
come
to
back to you
translate,
for
mate.
some technical consultation while we drink these or something. I don't know.
That's it. Yeah.
Right then, shall we get into it?
Yeah, I think
I'm
I
already
just
into it. Yeah.
I just kind of wanted to add on to the kind of point of what we're trying to achieve with just drinking some beers, which I think is kind of one of the questions we want to throw around, is like the suitability of this yeast for different beer styles.
Mm-hmm.
And like Phil, Paul, you can jump in here because you've probably got some guidance and idea of that already. You know, be interested to know kind of how you actually test that. And also, are we identifying any similarities in the beers that we could attribute to the yeast's contribution? Which you kind of hope maybe that kind of pineapple vibe will be the thing that will do it.
I guess while we start to just have a little bit of a go on this beer, maybe Phil, you could tell us sort of what the idea behind this yeast was in terms of what, you know, the target market for it is and styles and so on, and then we can have a little bit of time to percolate through this one.
Actually, interesting enough, we originally thought it'd be a great distilling yeast because it was extremely fast fermentation, and the ester that makes the pineapple flavor, ethyl hexanate, is a very desired flavor or ester in distilling. But because it's a non-diastatic strain, it means it's not as suitable for whiskey production. So in the end, we kind of settled on it for being used in beer production. So because pineapple flavor is obviously something that's you know, any tropical fruit is usually especially for production of IPA, is something that people are looking for, and a lot of the time they're looking for it in hops, and hops tends to be more expensive than yeast. So if you have a yeast solution, maybe you can reduce the amount of hops you need, or maybe you still use the same amount of hops but you get more pineapple, something like that. So that was we selected basically the yeast that produced the most amount of pineapple, or expressed the most amount of that ester.
So I guess on a similar, you know, path to what you're doing with like Mango Madness, as far as trying to find a yeast that expresses that specific fruit character that people can kind of go, I want my beer to have more mango or more pineapple or whatever it is.
Exactly.
Hence
the Mango Madness one's a good one because we have a brewer that like vapes, and he was like, oh, that Mango Madness, I love that yeast because it produces the same mango flavor as my vape. So it's but
it's always pleasant when that happens.
I don't know how to put that one onto the yeast pack.
You didn't fancy calling it like pineapple vape then?
Yeah, we it was on the ideas board for sure. Andy, this beer is really good. I work obviously in a customer facing role, and I have plenty of beers put in front of me, and I'm very good now at putting on a brave face, and I can tell you it's the best beer in the world. But this is genuinely really, really good. It's if that list of beers was a list behind a bar at a tap room, this tends to be what I would aim for, something in the 3 to 4% hazy, kind of slightly fruity, well hopped. And absolutely smashed it. It's really good, even if it was a bit of a happy accident for you.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you've got a real like nice sort of creamy mouthfeel and body on this, and it's
it's loads of good body. Yeah.
definitely belies the low ABV on there. I know you said you wanted a bit more alcohol.
Yeah.
But, yeah, as far as like a proper session strength hazy, it does the job of making you think it's a bit bigger than what it is. So
Definitely.
Yeah, totally.
Can I just talk about the aroma on this?
That's pineapple, isn't it?
It is literally straight up overripe pineapple,
That's what I was thinking.
and there's huge amounts of it as well. There's like a nudge of that sort of grapey white winey thing,
Oh, from the Nelson.
and then there's so much pineapple it's not even funny.
Mm.
Do you know what I get on the aroma? Right. Twister lolly.
Yes. Yes.
Like straight up Twister. It's wild. Because you get like an almost like creaminess on the aroma,
because the ice cream bit on there is pineapple ice cream, isn't it? On a Twister lolly,
yeah.
so
Yes,
it
it
is
is.
that
So it's
actual.
funny.
But
Lime
like
and
flavour
pineapple.
and aroma wise, I think you've absolutely nailed it there, Owen. So yeah, I can't
Andy,
get
you-
that out of my head now. That's the only thing I can think of. now.
Andy, you may suck at mashing in, but dude, you've created a great beer.
Well, yeah.
It is the one thing that I am picking up on this is just that overriding kind of pineapple aroma.
Yeah.
I'm getting a faint pineapple, just a faint pineapple from the flavour. I'm getting quite a lot of that white winey kind of thing going off, and I'm getting a hell of a lot of malt. But the overall aroma of, and it is heft. There's some body behind this.
Yeah.
But the overriding thing for me is just that aroma, just that massive amounts of pineapple on the aroma. And I'm not just saying that because it's called Pineapple Passion, boys. Okay?
I know it is. When I tried it, I was like, "Holy shit, that is total pineapple!" Like, yeah.
Are you getting that, Paul?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's worth mentioning that we as much as pineapple is a desirable flavor, that we're flavor requests that we're getting from our brewers and distillers, like we weren't searching for a pineapple specific yeast. We found this one. All of the in-house testing pointed towards huge pineapple aromas, and that's where the name came from. We weren't square peg round hole type thing.
Oh, it is. That is a great beer. I'm not drinking it all. I'm going to save a little bit so that we can. Because we talked about this when we were doing the notes. Save some, don't just chug it. Because if you don't save any, you've got nothing to compare with for the next one.
Yeah.
And this is a very chuggable beer as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'd
you
like
could
to say,
easily
Andy,
put this away.
I think for your like happy accident, you've probably just landed on
a great low
like a
ABV.
great format
Yeah.
for low ABV beers.
Yeah.
Because the body on that is mental for a 3.5%.
It is nuts.
Beer. I just want to loop back to two things. One was, what are the parameters in terms of your suitability of beer styles for this yeast?
Interesting one. If you'd come to me and asked for a yeast to brew a 3.5% hazy with, I probably would not have. This would not have been top of my recommendation. We've got others in the lineup that might have been more suited to it. Malta Trios negative strains that are, that naturally attenuate lower, and leave more body behind, and would contribute to the mouthfeel of a lower ABV beer. But I'm glad to learn that this is very capable of doing such beers as well. So that's a nice bit of nice thing to pick up for you. Thank you very much. What other beer styles we recommend this for? It's a modern IPA strain. I think it covers the whole spectrum of modern IPAs first and foremost. Also could creep into making sour beers as well because of its thermotolerance. So you can cover a large percentage of output from a modern craft brewery with every kind of IPA and sour. So you don't leave. There's not many other styles that are really taking up too much space on the chalkboards behind the bars in their tap rooms. It's very, very. You touched on it earlier, Owen. You said you've got a fair few NEPAs and hazy beers in your current lineup. I think the market is that at the moment.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean, it has been for years, and it probably will continue to be
It
for
probably
years.
will
but-
do, yeah. Just to jump on a quick question from one of our good friends at the podcast, Mr. Ron Muir. He says one of his core brews is a Mexican lager. He's a dry yeast lad, and he uses Cellar-sized Baja or AB Firma Lager Crisp. Which WHC dry yeast should he use? And are we going to get one of those? Well, actually, we've got one that's been released in about 3 weeks. Is that what we're going to get?
No, me and Paul are laughing because me and Paul went to CBC this year, and the American sales rep was like, "Oh, every brewery now has Mexican lager on tap. It's like the #1 beer style in all tap rooms in the US." And then he was like, "You need a Mexican lager strain. You need a Mexican lager strain." And I'm just thinking, is Ron Muir?
It's a plant. He's a plant.
Yeah. To try and put it into their head.
He's a mole.
Yeah.
Ron's Scottish.
Hey, as far as we
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
he's a real person.
Yep. No, we've met Ron.
Has he been
Met
bribed?
Ron.
Has he been
Unless he's playing the real long game, like as far as
Yeah,
He
yeah.
might be
industry plot,
CIA.
you know,
It's-
yeah.
it's
A
hard to
sleeper.
know.
He's a sleeper agent. Yeah.
He's a real person, and we have met him.
He's a dude.
We are actually looking at a Mexican lager yeast at the moment, but not due for release for maybe 6 months or something like that. So
Nice.
I'd say at the moment probably the best strain for Mexican lager yeast that we would have probably would be the Einstein, or actually the Helles yeast actually works quite well for Mexican lager, which you wouldn't think would be right for the style because it's more malty, but for some reason it works quite well, especially if you use like a much lighter fermentables as well.
Yeah, run
My-
some rice through that one.
My understanding of the origins of the brewing industry in Mexico, and this could be all day wrong, but I think they were originally a lot of German immigration that that kickstarted brewing in Mexico. So it makes
Just like
sense that
America.
it makes sense that a heritage German strain would do a good job in place of a Mexican lager strain for the time being, at least.
Yeah.
Well, when you guys come to the point you're about to release that yeast, make sure we get some so we can brew one up, will you?
That's it. We actually can get into it later, but we have quite a release schedule for 2025.
Oh, excellent!
Amazing.
We're gonna get some
Nice.
super inside info, boys.
Yeah.
So yeah, that sounds good. Just before we jump on, quick one because this is kind of standalone from Deck. It says purveyor of shit beer at the bottom of his logo, but trust me, it's really not shit beer. What would you recommend for a Scottish heavy?
I've got a weird answer for that one. I had somebody's beer at I think it was like the Brewing convention in Ireland, and they actually used the Hornadal Kvike strain to brew a wee heavy, and it was like unbelievably good. And that was probably the last time I also drank a wee heavy, so I'm gonna probably go with that as a selection.
Oh, there you go, Deck. Get some Hornadal in your life, mate.
A left field option, but
Sounds good.
so
The
go on.
that Edinburgh strain is also really good for that as well. I know a lot of breweries use that particular strain.
Is that one of your yeasts? Or
No, we don't have that one, but we do grow it up for like house cultures for breweries.
Okay.
Do you grow that one in Portsmouth? Because Owen could literally nip round with a bucket.
No, that one's in Ireland, but
Ah,
could get the ferry across, I suppose.
Yeah, I could. It's a long drive.
bit of a drive for you, mate.
Listen, there was another question I wanted to ask, which I just wanted to pick up on something that Paul mentioned in passing, which was about your kind of internal sensory analysis of your yeast. Could you tell us a bit about that?
It actually might be a better coming from Phil, Phil's our technical director. So Phil tends to look after more of the lab stuff. So I'll leave that with you, Phil.
We do a lot of testing for different strains for fermentation performance and also like the ester profile and the aromatic profile as well. So you do a lot of like trial fermentations, but also like mass spec analysis to see, okay, you're all saying it's pineapple flavor, but we try to like quantify the pineapple flavor. And then if you have like kind of the chemical compositions of different esters, compare a load of different yeast strains. So then if we are going for a yeast strain that produces pineapple flavor, then you can say, well, this yeast produces the most amount of pineapple. So we do a lot of work in that regard for trying to select yeast strains for bringing to market.
Nice.
So it's kind of like the yeast Olympics, if you think about it that way.
Yeah, I'm with you. Do you ever you've piqued my curiosity now, Phil. Do you ever find just oddities, like you try and do that quantification and scientific analysis of what the sensory piece tells you? Do you ever find just anomalies and stuff that you can't understand why you're getting loads of pineapple from a particular yeast, but the science tells you that that yeast isn't producing the most pineapple-ness?
I think it's more probably the more difficult thing is because yeast is like it's like a living organism, so it's more actually the difficulty is trying to get it to replicate, but to do the same thing every time. So it's actually the harder part is trying to get the repeatability, because like you don't, you could have a yeast that produces, and that also comes into it as well, that like you want a strain that's also, you could have a strain that could be like produce the best flavor ever, but only does it like under a condition where it's under this amount of pressure, or it has to be a certain gravity and that sort of thing. So you do have strains that produce like really good flavors, but they're kind of like totally unreliable. Maybe they don't ferment some sugars, or maybe they're really slow to ferment. So like we do actually have to keep like a commercial aspect to it as well, because like you do want, like, home brewers and breweries want yeast that is reliable as well as innovative. So that would be one of the factors that we look at, is like the repeatability of the yeast.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah, consistency is key, right? You can't really be putting on the back of the packet, it must be brewed by a virgin under a new moon, in order to kind of get the...
Exactly.
Yeah, I'm with you.
And even for like say brewery schedules, like they want to know how quick the fermentation would be, how long the conditioning period would be. So like if you had a yeast that was like a yo-yo, could you imagine trying to use that as the house strain? You're like, oh, it could be ready Wednesday, or it could be ready Wednesday of next month, that sort of thing. It would just give everybody like a headache, and it would reflect quite badly.
It sounds to me very much like, it sounds to me like when you're producing a yeast, it's kind of, it is, I mean, obviously it's very scientific, but it sounds to me very much like some of the analyses that I used to do, where essentially you were looking for reproducibility every single time. And if you don't get that reproducibility, then you're going to end up with something which, I mean, just call it a spawn yeast and stick it in a bottle, mate. I mean, that's kind of where you're going to end up going with that. But so just to pull back a little bit more towards Pineapple Passion, what specifically are we looking at for the expression of pineapple? I mean, are we looking at ethyl 3-methyl propanoate, or are we looking at more of the allyl hexanoate?
It's it was selected because the ethyl hexanate, it was the highest producer of that ester, which is the preferred pineapple flavor. Okay. It's a strange industry that I'm in, that I've said those words, but that's
I'll be honest with you. So we do an open evening. I work in a college, and we do an open evening, and I have to buy a specific pineapple cube from a specific producer, so that when they've got people coming around looking to come to the college, they actually say, oh yeah, because that is allyl hexanoate that's in that particular sweet, and that's why you're getting the pineapple flavour. So, yeah.
Cool. Interesting.
Not really, mate. That's why I'm the geek and I'm the one who's normally shunned to one side.
That didn't sound entirely convincing.
So, if any is opened Tricky's beer yet?
Oh shit, we're on the
say,
next
shall we
beer.
move on to the next one?
I'm still enjoying my.
Obviously,
second
Andy
round.
has.
I cracked it. Tricky. I can't
Yeah.
believe how they're actually quite similar.
They are, but there's also some stuff that's like a little bit different as well. Like,
which is probably Brew One and Nelson.
yeah, well, yeah, that might be part of it. But the I feel like the presentation of that like both definitely got the pineapple thing, but like the nature of that pineapple flavor is kind of subtly different. I don't know if you like, to me it feels like your one's a bit more of a softer pineapple. My one's a little bit more like, I don't know, when Chris was saying overripe pineapple, my one's maybe a little bit more sharper underripe pineapple, perhaps.
Okay.
Don't know what you think, but I'll let the rest of you have a ponder on that.
Possible differences just in kind of pH level in the final beer. Who wants to get a pH meter out and test them?
That's an interesting point. I'm not going to go and get the pH meter, but
Andy's in the brewery.
Maybe
Get
something
the
to
pH
test
meter out.
afterwards. Come on, Andy.
Oh, okay.
Well, as we've talked about previously, these kinds of things, literally the final pH being shifted by 0.2 can have a massive effect on the flavour representation of a beer. It is a huge effect. So, yeah.
I mean, we did have some shared hops, I think, didn't we, in the recipe? So Andy did use Citra and Eldorado as well. So I used those, but then, so basically it's kind of like Nelson in his versus Brew One in mine, and also in 2 different formats as well, because mine was Spectrum versus Incognito for him, but quite similar. But yeah, some differences there.
How do the finishing gravities compare?
I think mine came out at 10-15. Let me just double check that. The target was a little bit higher.
Andy said 10-13, I think.
No, sorry,
Yeah,
10-7. That's interesting. Mine was actually higher, so mine was 10-17 with a starting gravity of 10-49. So I got just under 65% attenuation, even though it was a 72-degree mash, which is interesting. But as you were saying, it doesn't, it still seems to work for that lower strength kind of hazy. It's just obviously still attenuates fairly well considering such a high mash temperature for me anyway.
Yeah, that's a strange beer, yours, Tricky.
Oh, thanks, Chris.
I don't mean strange
High
bad.
praise.
I don't mean strange bad. What I mean is, considering same yeast, similar hops, I imagine a very similar grain bill as well.
It can't be that far off, I wouldn't think.
The nose on yours compared to the nose on Andy's, yours is much more tart, for want of a better term.
No, that's what I was trying to get at. I think mine's more like almost, underripe pineapple almost on the aroma and the flavour. It's got that sharpness to it.
It's don't get me wrong, it's a great beer. It's an awesome beer, especially considering that 72-degree mash as well. But it is coming out as like much sharper, much more almost acidic, tarty on the kind of on the nose.
No,
but
I
on
agree,
the flavour,
definitely.
I'm actually getting more pineapple on the flavour from yours than I was from Andy's.
What do you think, Paul?
Agreed. I think definitely heavier on the citra and citrus notes on this one. And maybe that's kind of the more acidic side of the pineapple flavor coming through as well. Really good. I would have had that down as finishing gravity a bit lower, to be fair. Not quite getting the like full body thickness that Andy's had. It's definitely not lacking in body, but really good. Refreshing.
But that's interesting, isn't it? How that difference in acidity can give the impression of it maybe being a bit drier, even when it actually technically is a higher gravity. So
it's bang on.
Maybe it would be interesting to check the pHs and stuff, after the fact. But
It's right. It's exactly where you'd want it to be for a session hazy though. Bang on.
Yeah.
I don't think. What did you say? 17 on a finish on this.
For my one, yeah.
Yeah, I don't think it's 17. I don't think it's anywhere near 17. I think this is probably around about the 13, 14 region. It's not as hefty in the
I
body
mean, if you can
as Andy's
taste
is.
like 4 points of gravity difference.
No. I'm simply
Then
going
well done.
on what my...
He's a scientist. So.
Yeah.
Fuck the lot of you. All I'm trying to say is that it doesn't feel as heavy as Andy's did. Andy's feels much heavier than yours. When
I
you drink
get
it.
where you're coming from. Yeah, I'm
It's
just,
probably,
Thanks. You've
but
just-
mine's is probably the
just
grain
pissing on your
bill,
chips.
because mine's had chit and it had flaked oats as well. Is the main.
It
So it's
doesn't
golden.
feel as heavy.
It was Golden Promise, that Dingerman's Pilsen, and then chit and flaked oats. And the flaked oats was 1.5 kilos of flaked oats.
Oh,
But it was
that'll
with it-
explain that.
With the husk. So you have to half that if you want. Because with husk it helps with the running off.
Percolation. Yeah.
Running off.
Definitely
question whilst-
silky sex.
Whilst we're at
Silky
this
sex.
point, quick question from Ian Benfell, our wonderful visitor from Barnsley. He says, does ferment temp alter the flavour? What is the preferred temp to max out the pineapple?
Paul, do you
Great
want to
question.
take this one?
Yeah, great question. Would everybody just say what temp they fermented at, out of curiosity?
I think I just split the range and went for 24, as far as I remember. So yeah, it was 24
Yeah,
for me.
Mine was 24 as well.
Same Z's, I think.
yeah. Sounds about bang on.
22.
Sounds,
Yeah.
22.
I mean, you have given quite a specific temperature range for this yeast versus obviously some of the other things like Mango Madness has a wider range. So I guess that you're going to say why that is, you know.
yeah, absolutely. And this yeast would be perfectly happy fermented within that range, within that extended range that you see with Mango Madness and high voltage. But the range quoted on this packet is selected exactly for that reason. It's selected as that's where we were seeing the most pineapple flavor produced. Simple as. So mid 20s to maximize pineapple for sure.
Did you notice any particular difference between the top and the bottom end of that range as far as the expression, or is it just that, you know, anywhere in that sort of areas will give you similar results?
Yeah, exactly.
We found that the yeast could go a little bit higher temperatures, and it was a bit more tropical fruit, but not as much pineapple. So
Okay, interesting.
specifically, we did trials at like 28, 29, 30. We did some brewery trials at different higher temperatures as well, but it seems that the flavor profile is the most on trend for between 20 and 24. I'd say probably 22, 24 is like the sweet spot.
Yeah, 22 is what I'd.
Is
What did
it
you use,
sweeter
Trey?
the hotter you go?
24.
Right, okay.
Hot mash temp or
No,
fermentation? temp?
ferment.
Unsure if the ferment temp's really gonna impact the sweetness. Maybe that's something that like you're seeing with Richard's brew there with like the perceived sweetness maybe, but then that's probably also tied to pH and ABV as well. So hard to tell exactly.
Are we going to get to the point with these yeasts that are coming out that are quite specific when it comes to the flavour profile that they're sort of purporting to draw out? Are we going to get to the point where there's going to be a pH recommendation on the yeast packet for the final beer in order to be able to accentuate those flavours?
It's all up. It's up
No,
for
and-
experimentation.
Andy,
but yeah,
I
it's
get
good.
that, but my point is, if we're saying a slightly higher pH might push the pineapple more, if we're getting to the point where we're saying a higher final gravity might reduce this or increase that, are we going to get to the point where yeast manufacturers like yourself are going to do the research and say a final beer pH of 4.7 with, you know, a mash temperature of this with this much and this much will give you the maximum of the flavour from this yeast? Are we going to reach that point, do you think, or is it too nuanced for that?
I think people that are in craft beer usually go against the rules anyway. So by telling people to do, I want the pH to be an exact point. I'd say 70% of them would be like,
Do the
screw
complete
that.
opposite.
We'll do the opposite. See what happens. So I'd say more what we would do is instead of putting on the pack, if we're doing say technical seminars or stuff like this, then we would kind of give the nuances. Or if we're doing technical sales calls with breweries, then we might kind of, they're looking to try and get more pineapple. But I think you're better off kind of providing the yeast and maybe giving an idea in temperature, but then letting people work on it as well. And then the other thing is, as the strains are in the market for longer, you get more feedback from people, so you can also kind of dial in the technical support you give people as well, and that kind of helps with like, you know, stuff that you're not really able to do as much in the labs, like be like, oh, it goes really well with this hop, or it goes really well with say flex, or it goes really well, you know, like, because you can't test for everything in the lab. You can only kind of, and a lot what you get is experience back from your customers, and then you kind of build a bigger, better profile on the yeast itself and what works and what doesn't.
Okay, fair play. I mean, I was just thinking for a beer which for a yeast rather, which is quite specific in that it is pineapple passion. It might be nice to sort of point people in the general direction, because we've got two beers here with a slightly different final gravity, slightly different mash temp, and we've come out with two completely different expressions of the pineapple aroma and the pineapple flavour.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful
this is
world.
craft. This is craft.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, this is beyond craft, Paul. This is homebrewers fucking around. That's what this is.
So listen, are we gonna if we're gonna get on to the next beer before you open that, Chris? Do you want to do yours first or mine next?
We'll do yours, mate. We'll do yours.
Okay, I'm just thinking ABV order.
It's too late. Yours is in the glass, Owen.
All right. So listen, you guys pour that. I need to go and get one from the tap. 2 seconds.
Oh, you see, now he's showing off. To be fair, I need to get one from the tap for mine next. I have to say, the overriding thing that I'm getting so far, just out of these two beers, is a hell of a lot more pineapple on the aroma than I am on the flavour. And I don't want that to sound like I'm in any way disrespecting the yeast, because I'm not. I love this yeast. But it does seem to me to be more of a thing that kind of, it seems to be pushing much more in the pineapple aroma than flavour.
Interesting.
On that point, actually, when we're talking about esters in yeast, are they more aroma driven, or are they, you know, flavour as well, or are they, you know, depends on the ester as to how much it's flavour or aromatic? You know, is that yeah?
Certainly, just it depends on the flavour or the ester itself. Whether some are more volatile esters, and then some of them are more, you know, they hang around for longer. And some of them over time they'll develop into other flavors as well. So it's also very and then you also have like the hops coming in, you know, the various oils and stuff like that. So it's very complex that I don't even understand.
There's not a straight answer to that, is there? It's
no.
Yeah. But obviously, some of them, it's probably more the case that it's a you know, fairly direct relation. I mean, I guess like banana would be a good example with like wheat beers. Like you get that banana aroma and it tastes of, you know, farm bananas or whatever as well at the same time. Maybe for other esters, it's going to be a different perception of that. But I think it's a good point. Obviously, with the different hops and stuff we're throwing at these beers, particularly, you're going to be, you know, muddying the waters somewhat there as far as the flavour and the aroma. But we've definitely got you know, pineapple in all of them so far, haven't we?
Yeah, even Owens now. So, and it's like super pungent, because it just feels like there's just, with that alcohol in it, it just seems like it's just like.
I can tell Owen's gone West Coast on this. The bitterness is maybe just a touch above what I'm comfortable with.
Yeah, definitely West Coast territory. So this is kind of, it's used a bit of Pilsner, a bit of pale malt in there, and used some dark Munich just to add a bit of kind of slightly old school
Still
West
quite
Coast
bright.
style.
Well,
Mine's pretty hazy, to be fair. I don't know if it's dropped a little bit in the bottle, but
oh yeah.
I was impressed with the yeast. So they did get quite a high attenuation. It came in at, I think, apparent attenuation was at 87%. So it finished 5 points below where I was expecting it to finish. But I did mash it at 65 degrees. And I did make a starter as well with the dried yeast. I know, I'm sorry, Phil, for that. But I got 2 packets of it, and I was being frugal, shall we say.
Yeah, you could make another batch. Yeah,
Yeah, exactly. Being a bit tight. But it fermented out. It wasn't. I actually didn't find it fermented out that quickly for me. But that said, it was a higher AG beer.
Yeah.
So the AG was 10.56, I think. 10.56. It was due to finish at 10.12. Finished at 10.007. As I said earlier, I bittered it with Columbus, and then there's Idaho 7 and Citra predominantly, with a little bit of Chinook late in the boil and a little bit of Talus in the whirlpool.
I really like this, Owen. It's great.
Yeah, it's freaking awesome. I actually think they're quite similar in flavor. Like, if you drink Tricky's and then drink yours, it's just like there's more similar than I would expect with the hop selection, because what's the tie-in is basically Citra.
There's
It's
definitely
only
a
tie.
big difference in bitterness.
Yeah, but it's.
I hear what you're saying.
like
Though.
that.
There's that the pineapple character again on this one is a little bit more spiky, kind of, like really fresh.
I get that. Was it the fruit lolly type, the sweetie lolly? It was the Bassett's one, fruit lolly sort of thing off this.
Yeah, I mean, when like pineapple's a little bit
But pineapple,
a
it
little
is
bit
pure.
hard, and it's like it has got quite a sharp taste to it. It's more.
Well,
that kind
there's
of
mega pineapple off that actually.
It is a lot of pineapple.
It's really good again. And if you had reached out prior to this and asked for a yeast for your West Coast IPA, perhaps Pineapple Passion would not have been the first one that I'd have recommended. But it's nice to see. It's nice to see such a bright finished product here. Can't really see it on the webcam at all, but in contrast to the two previously, but still got that great pineapple aroma. But probably more similar to Tricky's, like slightly more like the top notes of the pineapple. It feels like the spiky. You said spiky pineapple. I think I'm going to steal that phrase, but yeah, it fits for sure.
I think what I'm getting on the aroma, right, is I think that dark Munich carries through into a little bit of a like caramelized pineapple on the aroma.
Yes,
Barbecued pineapple.
Yeah.
That's what it tastes like. It tastes like barbecued pineapple.
Because see the Max Ferma did, I put that pineapple puree in it, and Owen, yours is like the closest to that, with that sort of real ripe sort of pineapple, definite.
Can I just point something out while we're at this point? Is I'm sitting here and I'm looking at all you guys on this wonderful chat that we've got going off, and I'm seeing the disdain and the hatred in Phil's eyes. That he's like, these fuckers are drinking all of this beer, and I don't have any of them. I can see it. It's just a burning hatred. Phil, we'll get some sent out to you on FedEx, mate. Don't worry, it's all good. We'll get them sent out. They're yeast samples, mate. That's what they are.
Exactly. I've been reverse Brexited here, so. But I actually would like to say that the flower yeast is actually really good. The beer that they made. So
I can see you sneaking at the audio, having a good slurp of that one, fella. It's looking like you're enjoying that one.
Yeah, because like Paul will attest that sometimes people get in touch and they'll say, "Oh, we've got a really, really good yeast strain that's really nice," and all the rest of it, and it's maybe not as good as they would have thought, but this one is actually really good. So yeah, it's good. It's a good project. So I'm eyes are lighting up and thinking about it and all the rest of it.
Is that got prospects for bringing to market? You think, Phil?
I think so. Yeah, the brewery are really interested in it. And they think that they found some. It's actually I don't know if you'll be able to see on the camera because they put like the flour and stuff on the can. I'll send a picture to you. Maybe you can put it up on your page.
Well,
But
stick it up, defo.
they're really keen on trying to get it out there because they think it'll be really good for like promoting the name of the island and the flour and all the rest of it. So it's a really interesting project, and it's something that we'd be really, really keen on pushing, you know. Especially if we don't have to go to the work of trying to find the next yeast strain that gets sent to us. It's always a good thing, you know.
We have just had a question that needs answering, boys.
Is this Brett's? No.
Has anyone tried co-pitching Mango Madness?
No, but I think I might have a packet of both of them in the fridge still. So that's a good idea.
I don't think anybody's done it commercially, but maybe Paul knows somebody.
Yeah, a couple of commercial brewers have asked that very question, and I've said, please do. It's definitely very possible, and you will certainly end up with something very tropical. So let us know how you go.
I think we push the fermentation temperature of that one to 26 and see what happens, boys. Let's stretch the banjo string. Let's go.
A little fun fact for you: Reunion Island is in the Indian Ocean.
Yeah.
Off the coast of Madagascar, next to Mauritius.
Yes, it is.
In case anyone was, any of our listeners were wondering where Reunion Island was.
Been there. Hello.
Did you go there on your honeymoon?
Yeah, we got married in Mauritius. So yeah, been there.
That's yeah.
Another quick one. So this is from Brett, and guys, you're gonna have to answer this one because I am very interested in this. There's mango, there's pineapple, but everybody knows that raspberry is the most awesome fruit in beer. Is there any magic, any yeast that you've got that could bring us some raspberry to our beer?
We haven't found a raspberry one yet, but we're also starting to do it. We only started this like fruit series this year, and we're trying to, because it's been quite popular, we're looking to add to that over the next year or two, and there'll be other fruits, hopefully. We also have the banana split, but that's more like a Hefeweizen yeast, and that, you know, like there's been yeast strains in the market that produce banana flavor already. But because there's been such good feedback from the different fruit series, we're hoping to add to that as well. Like we had a strain that tasted like apricot recently. We were kind of talking about, would that be of interest to people as well?
Yes.
I think that would be very popular for NEPAs and stuff like that.
Yes.
Sure. Yeah.
It would be. Yeah. Is there a specific ester that gives off a raspberry flavour?
There probably is, but I can't think of it off the top of my head.
It's putting you on the spot again.
Give me 2 minutes with Google. BRB.
So I imagine, as far as like trying to find this stuff, is it literally like you've got a lab with just like rows and rows of flasks with different isolates sort of on the go, trying to find these different esters and flavor profiles? Is that kind of literally how you approach this, or is there some other process?
Yeah, there is. Like, we do have a lot of strains in the bank, and then we have access to other university banks and stuff like that. So between everything, there's more strains than we'll ever get through.
Mm-hmm.
I'd be dead by the time they'd finish all the strains. So but I suppose like a lot of them, you can get rid of a lot of them fairly quickly, because you're looking for ones that are non-phenolic which you can test for like genetically. You
Yep.
can look for ones that are going to ferment glucose, sucrose, fructose, maltose. So if they don't ferment those sugars, you can probably get rid of them.
Sure.
So you can break it down quite quickly, and then it's down to sensory and aroma and stuff like that.
At which point you do have to do an actual fermentation with it, I guess, to, you know.
Exactly, yeah.
The chemical that you're looking for is isobutyl formate.
I should have had that off the top of my head.
No,
but-
yeah, it was on the tip of your tongue, right?
Yeah.
There are two others that give raspberry as well. One of them being ethyl heptanoate and isobutyl acetate.
Okay.
But
All
right,
the isobutyl acetate is more of a cherry, raspberry, strawberry kind of thing. The ethyl heptanoate is more apricot, cherry, grape, raspberry kind of, depending on it. But isobutyl formate is the daddy. That is straight up raspberry. So make it happen, boys, and let us know.
So that'd be like episode 200 or something. Maybe we'll have the release of the.
That works for me.
If somebody wants to come up with a name for this as well.
I believe Brett already did. It was Raspberry Ripper.
Oh yeah,
Or
I like it.
The Phantom Raspberry Blower of Old Ireland Town. That would work.
Not quite as zippy, that one.
Yeah.
Wait. Raspberry Parade.
Oh, nice.
You can credit Brett when that one gets released.
Yeah, done.
I remember.
That was, I'll be honest with you, that would be perfect. A raspberry ester yeast, that'd be banging.
I could see it.
Raspberry Parade.
He was a genius and should
It
not have
was.
died when he did. Okay, I guess we're moving on to mine then,
We're
which
gonna
neither
hit
of the
up
boys from WHC
Chris's one,
have.
Yeah.
No.
We'll take your
Sit
word
back.
for it.
Sit
just,
back, boys. Enjoy.
Strap in.
We'll make it a very brief slating of Chris's beer, and then we can move on.
do you know what? No, but it's crazy. The aroma is, I think, this yeast is driving the aroma in all these beers.
Oh, there's for sure a common
There's that.
aroma you're getting for all of them.
Good. That's great to hear.
Yeah,
I'm glad
I'm
because-
actually quite surprised at how similar they all are, considering.
I'm glad we didn't come on and we were slated that nothing
Yeah.
tastes like
There's
pineapple.
no pineapple in these
hold
at
on.
all.
Yeah, what's the
lads.
pineapple?
going
What
on?
are you talking about?
There's
all
no
on-
commonality at all.
Yeah,
That-
but
that
they
is
actually.
Marketing ploy.
To be fair, I think that just a bit of background, just in terms of when we've been talking about this for a little while, and as I said earlier, it's been in the planning, and I think we decided we wanted to brew a breadth of different beer styles with this yeast, just to kind of really sort of stretch it and see. And I think when we come back to that question about suitability of different beer styles, broadly speaking, we've kind of gone for what could be described as pale ale through to IPA,
Yeah,
which is pretty
Pale-
much, I think, the intended
pale
style
American
spectrum.
fruity.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does that very well, I think.
Chris is a bit left field with a Pilsner style.
Yeah, but I'm.
How
a
juicy
huge
is
fan
that,
of-
though? That's
It's a good one, isn't it?
Oh, mate.
I'm a huge fan of the flavour that a Pilsner malt gives as just the base for hops to build off. I know everybody rants on about Marisotta and they wax lyrical about other sort of base malts in order to build that fruity flavour off, but I've not found anything that's better than Vehemen's floor malted Bohemian Pilsner. And this...
I mean, Chris, this is absolute citrus tangerine on the. I think your Idaho 7 is like juicy as.
It is.
How
a
much
very good
did you
Idaho
spread?
It's got
in
that
this.
real like sticky Idaho 7 character to it as well, which almost makes it taste a little bit like a West Coast Pilsner to me. Like, I think it's got that like
It's not far off.
it's got
I'm
a
salivating.
West Coast Pilsner
Go on.
vibes.
But
You know that way, your mouth goes so like it salivates so much that you just need more on this.
You know those sweets that come in like Parma violets.
Oh yeah.
Right, but like the other ones that aren't Parma violets but are like fruity.
Not the fizzy ones.
The fizzy ones.
Yeah.
What are they called?
Smells just like those.
Swizzles or something like that.
Swizzlers.
But see
Swizzlers was the dipper ones, wasn't it?
But you don't get the same aroma as all the others. It's that sort of pineapple thing that.
Yeah.
It seems that yeast is what's
Funny, that.
driving all that aroma.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is a yeast which.
And it's really nice.
This makes me think of pineapple cubes, but also actual pineapple cubes.
Yes.
Like
it's a great yeast for pushing huge aroma. And it is literally yeast-driven aroma because we've had 4 beers and all 4 beers we've had the same aroma from it.
Yeah, which is a bit mad. Actually, I've never had a yeast that's done that. I don't think.
No.
Have you guys?
Phil, Paul, you should both be smiling right now because this literally is. This is does exactly what it says on the packet.
Great news. Yeah.
Yeah.
And we had you had good feedback from
Ron
brewers,
Seal.
Paul, on the pineapple flavor. They've all commented on it.
Yeah.
It's awesome. It's very, very good.
Yeah.
I like just talking nuances now, but what I like in my beer is the almost creamy thing that you get from the Talus.
Oh, the sunscreen.
Which mixes in beautifully with the pineapple and that kind of top end that comes from the Idaho 7, that kind of fruity nature, but still with a good chunk of pineapple in it, which I think is epic. That's why I love this beer so much.
Very crisp at the same time.
Well, that might have something to do with the fact that it was lagered for 6 weeks.
Yeah, it's a good beer, Chris. I thanks for sending us 2 bowls.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
yeah,
to
actually,
mention, I missed a trick earlier and when you mentioned about the fact that Paul Phil didn't get any of the beers. But Paul came up trumps because he got 2 bowls of every beer. So
that is true. Yeah.
It's got a long night in front of him.
Yeah, exactly. And both for next week as well.
You can rewatch the podcast.
One thing that might be interesting that none of you used Sabro, and that was a hop that's been mentioned a few times that people have used because the way it's got the coconut vibe flavor to it. A lot of people are saying that they're using that hop plus that yeast and they're getting like a pina colada thing going on.
Yeah.
That's what Chris is got the Talus in it, so it's very like
It
what
has got
saying.
a little bit of that, yeah.
It's like that, yeah. With that sort of what we would always describe as sunscreen type, that sort of tangerine coconutty thing, dead creamy, yeah.
Yeah, I think Talus gives you that similar creaminess, I think, to Sabro, but you don't get the coconut. I don't think you get as much coconut.
Yeah,
that's what hit me about this beer, Chris, when I had it last night.
Yeah,
there's definitely like a creaminess that comes through, and actually the Talus comes through more in the bitterness quality, where you get like a little hint of like herbaceous sage in the bitterness. I think if
I'm
you
muted again, but yes, that hint of sage.
Yeah, like if you take 2 big gulps, one after the other, you'll get it. It will.
Yeah, if you really want to experience the creaminess with the sage and the pineapple, take a bit into your mouth and just suck air through the beer.
It's just Chris. You must have dry hopped this, or what? The amount of hops you must have put in this was incredible.
No, not really.
What did you put in this? Because I know you tend to go big.
I went very restrained on this.
I was going to say it's the brightest beer out of all of them. So
I know.
I bet it probably had one of the lower dry hops.
It was only 10 grams per litre, So I
Okay.
I went with
Classic.
so at 10 minutes in the boiler was 30 grams of Idaho 7 and 25 grams of Talus.
Cool.
A 25-minute aroma stand at 65 degrees. There was 60 of Idaho 7 and 60 of Talus.
It's quite a lot.
And then, please, that's nothing.
It's...
And then for dry hop, for exactly 48 hours before being crashed, it was 50 of each.
That's not a lot.
No,
That's
it's
pretty
not a lot.
subdued.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you mean 10 grams per litre in total, not
10 grams
just for
per
the
litre
dry
in
hops?
total, yeah.
Oh,
Of hops,
that's
yeah,
alright.
yeah, it's subdued, yeah.
Sensible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right, okay.
I
So, I
love
mean-
this beer. I think this beer
Yeah.
is great.
Oh, this is awesome. I really like that a lot.
Yeah, I do like
I
it.
mean, one of the things we sort of set out was trying to answer with these beers, was suitability across a range of styles. And I guess Paul's already said, you wouldn't necessarily recommend this yeast for some of the beers that we've brewed for this, but it seems like it's actually, obviously there's this overriding pineapple element to all of them, but it's actually seems like it's a really good all-rounder for quite a few different end results here so far.
Yeah, because we've got hazies and then super clear as well, so...
Yeah.
Yeah.
The other thing that I really
West
like...
Coast IPA
Sorry, go on.
pilsners. Yeah, we've got a lot. No,
Yeah.
it's great. But even in full brews, you've covered a really good range of ABVs and styles. So yeah, great feedback for. I'll be telling the commercial brewers for sure about these beers.
On that note, one of the questions we got on the sheet here is about sort of flavour profiles for yeast. Is there any way that you go about kind of quantifying that in terms of graphs and stuff? I mean,
Yeah, we
we've
discussed
seen it
this,
for
haven't
some,
we?
love a bit of
some other
data,
yeast,
boys.
but
We love some
is that
data.
something that you do already
Spider
in-house
graphs.
at all, or something that you might do in the future?
Yeah, we do. We could even send them across to you in some like files, and you could share them on your page if you'd like.
That'd be amazing.
We're building a new website at the moment, and it'll have like an interactive flavor chart with like
Oh, that's cool.
actual science on it as well. So it'll be like flavor wheels as well. So yeah,
Nailed it,
I've
Bits.
been working on it for a bit, but it takes too much time, unfortunately.
When's
But
sorry, let's go across you. When's that pegged for release to go live?
I don't want to put a date on it.
I'm gonna press you. Give me a quarter.
I'd say early 2020. I was hoping it get done before the end of the year, but once it gets into December, very little gets done. Right?
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
So we're going
So-
half 1, 25.
Q1 2025.
Q1. Okay,
Yeah,
good.
yeah.
Any specific month of Q1?
He's putting the pressure on you.
Yeah.
Ba-
Oh, and you're
basically,
singing from
Phil-
my hymn sheet right now. That's yeah. I've definitely been asking for this for a while now, haven't we? So it's
Yeah, I think the probably the website is probably quite dated, so we're trying to give it a fresher look and an upgrade and try and make it like more interactive and help people choose like the best yeast for each style and stuff like that. So I think it'll be more informative for brewers then.
Yeah, that would be good. That would be great, especially for home brewers. I think like we really enjoy and appreciate when there's good information to absorb to help us in that design thinking, in our creativity. That's going to be a big win, I would say.
Could somebody just pick up on the last question about the yeast and why it's there?
Oh yeah, I think I put this question down, and this might be, I don't know how strongly your roles cut across the marketing department, but what was psychedelic about this yeast, out of interest? Or was that just your marketing department decided to just smoke some weed before coming up with some good ideas?
You're 100% taking this question.
yeah. That's fair. That's fair. I guess it's the market is saturated right now with IPAs. It's not a bad thing. That's just the way it is. So when brewers are putting together recipes, they are searching for a point of difference with their product that's going to help them stand out in a fridge full of IPAs, right? So we with this yeast, you're looking at like a slightly different process. From a process point of view, the fermentation temperatures are not where people are used to, so we're pushing limits there, pushing boundaries. It's like a new perspective. So that's kind of at the psychedelic angle. Yeah, it's going to add things that you probably weren't looking for or weren't a new perspective on IPAs, definitely with new processes to put in place. You're gonna it's not just your core IPA recipe. You're gonna have to think a little bit differently, and yeah, it's a marketing tool.
I was gonna say, because I've had a few sort of pints of this, and I've never experienced anything psychedelic.
Yeah.
No,
Chris, yours is probably the most psychedelic out of the lot.
Yeah, turn on, tune in, drop out.
That's the one, man.
It's good, mate.
So quickly, before we let you guys go, before we go to the after party, are you guys going to join us for the after party? Answer a few questions from our listeners.
Sure.
I reckon I've got 5-10 minutes in me.
Okay. So, got anything else on the horizon, yeast-wise? Anything else coming out that we need to know about?
Yeah, is that release schedule going to get fleshed out a little bit for us?
Yeah. Maybe every single one for the next 12 months.
Yeah. Let's give some teasers for sure. So, like a little bit maybe about the way we operate. It's much faster for us to bring out strains in liquid and release those to market. We could realistically get those to market in weeks. And when you're talking about looking into how you dry strains, whether you can successfully dry strains and get them to market, you're talking 6 months plus, maybe closer to a year with sometimes. So things move faster with liquid yeast. We only do commercial liquid pitches for the time being, at least. So you'll see some movement there over the next 6 months for sure. But what might happen as well is some of our favorite liquid yeasts are going to be arriving in dehydrated form as well. That's what we're working on behind the scenes at the moment. The imminent release is our Blitz Lager strain. And this, to go back to what we were chatting about earlier, where we're looking at problems that some brewers encounter and how yeast can step in to solve those problems. Blitz Lager is a fast-acting yeast that is going to make a lager in a fraction of the time that if you don't have the luxury of your garden shed lagering process like Chris with 6 weeks on this beer. You know, some high throughput breweries with no space, and they're looking for fast lager. So that's the next one, Blitz Lager. A few other strains that are already doing really, really well, really popular in liquid that are likely to arrive in dehydrated at some point in Q1 next year as well. You could be looking at one of the favorite liquid lager strains, which is a heritage German strain, and another, you guessed it, another strain which is great at hazy IPAs as well. So few things going on there. And whilst that's happening, there's going to be a lot more going on with our liquid yeast as well. We're working on a couple of hybrid strains, which is quite exciting. A few of them are going to be IPA strains as well. And another big area of growth within beer at the moment is the 0%ers. So that's something as well that we're going to be looking at, the true 0% beers. So loads going on. Also, things fall into our lap sometimes as well, like the Reunion Island yeast, which we're obviously quite excited about as well. So out of curiosity, go Phil.
We have talked about the non-alcoholic strains. We have a yeast strain that actually doesn't produce any alcohol. So you know the way a lot of non-alcoholic strains in the market, they just produce a very small amount of alcohol, but you have to do a lot of like complex mashing and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. We have a strain that's like a Krebs negative strain. So instead of going to alcohol, it's just consuming sugar with producing, say, beer flavored esters and stuff like that. So we have some interesting developments. Whether they'll be for outside of commercial, I don't know, but we'll have to see.
We try really.
Whoa! You can't say a word to me, being a biochemist like Krebs negative, and not give me a little more explanation on that one. How the fuck does that one work?
So it's basically the yeast is breaking down the sugar. It's a non-Saccharomyces yeast, and it's breaking down sugar. And then when it's metabolizing the sugar, it's instead of going down the pathway to produce alcohol and CO2, it's just going down a different metabolic pathway that it's producing more yeast and some CO2 and ester flavors. So it's actually not producing any alcohol.
How does that work?
Yeah, it's a little bit more complex because you need to give it a little bit of air during fermentation, like a little bit of O2 to force it into that cycle, but you're only talking about like a very small amount.
So we're talking a
Non-Saccharomyces.
So it's non-aerobic. So it's aerobic rather than anaerobic then.
It would be a facultative anaerobic fermentation. So you'd be for like half the fermentation, you're pushing it. So you can see why it would be quite difficult to do on the homebrew scale.
That'd be mental.
You'd want to be like a serious homebrewer to want to use it, but like I'm sure there's somebody out there that would be interested.
Yeah,
in
that's.
It, but,
I'll be honest, that's not me, but yeah, I can see that one. Holy shit, that's mental.
Yeah, it's mental. But there's probably this is probably going way left field, but like there's a lot of non-alcoholic beers are 0.5% on the market because to label it as non-alcoholic in the EU and the UK, you can have 0.5%. But they reckon now that like a lot of the macro breweries, because they're using reverse osmosis, different methods to produce non-alcoholic beers outside of yeast. They're producing beers that are actually 0.0%, and they think what I've been reading and hearing is that there'll kind of be like a little bit of crackdown where they might reduce the allowance on the 0.5%, and they might reduce it actually down to 0.05% or something like that. So we're trying to develop strains that could craft breweries could use that don't have these big kits for removing alcohol, that sort of thing. So we're just looking at yeast fermentation solutions for what's a growing segment in beer.
That's interesting, and honestly, Thomas Santa is definitely interested in trying that one. That'll be for Christmas Eve night when he's actually on the sleigh.
Yeah.
That sounds well interesting. How do you do? That's crazy.
We'll publish when we release the yeast. We'll publish like a white paper with it, but it'll be
Well, make sure you email me that one because I want to read that. That is absolutely fucking insane.
Yeah.
Wow, yeast really aren't that different to us, are they?
It's cool.
Wow. Also, the next point on the last questions, I'm gonna push you on this. You know I was gonna do it. When do you bring back hopping pills?
I'll let Paul take this one.
You need to rebrand it. I would rebrand it as a German, Oktoberfest or like something that's gonna bring something that's that bit malty, more malty to the table. Yeah.
Can I put it to the chat? Would they prefer we're gonna release one? Would they prefer we have like the liquid Helles yeast, the Hellfire Club, but it's like the the Augustiner strain, the Munich Helles strain. So that one we're releasing soon in like a dried version.
That'll be good.
If they could choose between that, the Mexican lager strain, or the bringing back the hopping pills, what would they prefer?
If any of you say anything other than hopping pills,
I mean, I've made two.
I'm canning this shit.
Yeah, because I made a Helles with hopping pills, and I've now made a Czech Pils with hopping pills, and both of them have been the best beers I've ever made. Like, genuinely, so good.
I just have to say, from a personal standpoint, yes, it may be a fest beer or a Märzen strain. It is one of those things where it is a very flexible yeast.
Yes.
That has more applications than simply being a Märzen strain.
Oh, it says IPL. it's meant to be for hopping. Like it's branded as a hopping pill, so it is. But it is just like, see if you use that in a straight up German Helles or even a Czech, it is like, oh my word, so
it is
good.
superb. It's one of those
It
yeasts
is
that
so good.
I'll be honest with you, I don't really care if the commercial people give a toss about it. It's one of those yeasts that for a home brewer, for flexibility, for an ability to produce an incredibly well-hopped lager, to produce a straight-up Märzen, to be able to produce a fest beer. Yes, admittedly, it is very sort of, at one point during the year, produce 2 tons and sell it. But guys, come on, you can't just bin that strain.
No.
Especially
I think I can't really say no to that.
Even if you produce it as a special edition, I guarantee you people will buy it.
It's just not had the traction. I think we need to drive the traction, Chris. That's what it is, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's such a
that's fair.
strain.
That's fair.
Obviously, we're all behind the hopping pills bandwagon here, but a dry version of the Timothy Taylor's yeast would be nice.
That'd work as well.
Yeah, if you could sort that one out, that'd be good.
Yeah, that'd be an interesting one. That'd be an interesting one for us to work on, but we haven't had a look at that yet.
That's such a goddamn amazing yeast as well.
Hands
isn't it?
down, probably my favourite English ale yeast.
Okay.
Yeah, West Yorkshire.
Interesting.
Very good.
Interesting.
Anything new coming out as far as different Kvike strains go? Because, I mean, obviously this strain was selected for its flavour profile. And, you know, is there anything coming out as far as Kvike goes, like specific Kvike strains that you've managed to isolate or that you've managed to grab a hold of and reproduce effectively and consistently?
Well, we have the Voss in dried, and then we have the Hornendal strain in dried at the moment as well.
Kvikes, isn't it?
So we've been doing pretty well with them. We do have other strains in the bank as well. Like we have a lot of those ones that are on the registry. I'd say probably our pipeline for next year sorted would never say never. Because if there was something that people would be really interested in, it probably, like, a lot of the time, like, it sounds like a lot of the time, like, all of our ideas are coming from, like, our customers and people writing into us and stuff like that. So, like, if people are really interested in something, you gotta vote with your emails and your comments and all the rest of it. So I know the hopping pills, obviously, but if there's other strains that people like, 100%.
Yeah, I mean, I bet. What's your biggest selling actually? Is it saturated?
Yeah.
I mean, I bought a brick of saturated, and it is so good. Right. Yeah. But then see tonight having the pineapple passion, like you could literally swap that saturated for pineapple passion, you know. And if you want your beers to just be that sort of pineapple throughout, you know, that's
It sounds a lot like you're doing my job there, Andy.
Well, feel free to pay us.
You like that one? Try this one.
It is one of those things whereby we do something like this and we normally get 2 or 3 beers in. The conversation tends to go off on a tangent because essentially think of this podcast as 4 blokes sitting in a pub having a beer. You can imagine where the conversation's going to go, all right? But ultimately, what we've come down to is Pineapple Passion does exactly what it says on the tin.
We've had 4 great beers. There's 4 great beers tonight.
Thank you.
Absolute bangers, right? And I'm a bit shocked, actually, at how good the beers were tonight.
I'm more impressed of how similar they were.
Yes. Yeah, that and it was the honk of the pineapple that came off, sort of thing, the aroma. But it was like
I'm not sure
so
honk's
right.
the right word.
No, but
Technical
right.
term.
Yeah, but it was. Yeah, it's
I
good.
think it's like a train.
What I would say is, like, for a yeast, if you didn't know that the yeast was the common factor, you'd probably think that these will have the same hop in them.
Yeah.
As far as like, you know, how it's had such a impact on the flavour of all the beers in a similar way. Blind tasting that, you'd probably go, oh, there must be a common hop.
Sultana Denali type thing.
Whatever it might be.
It's kind of...
So to see that impact from a yeast is actually quite exciting, because, you know, obviously sometimes you have yeast and there's descriptors for the esters that they deliver and stuff, and it can be a little bit like difficult to pin that down, you know.
Yeast for me normally is like, it'll drive the body, it'll drive the kind of mouthfeel of the beer sort of thing, and then maybe the appearance, but like literally we've got 2 hazies and 2 clears almost sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So
I think it's kind of also like, it's made me realise just how much the yeast does contribute to the beer, in terms of, if you imagine malt being like the foundations of the building, and then yeast is almost like, you know, the first floor, you know, and then hops is really the kind of second floor and the roof. You know, it's really, really compounded that point that actually yeast just has a huge contributing factor to,
of course,
to the perception of a beer. I just wanted to take us back to the Kvike conversation.
No problem.
You guys, you did a liquid version of Ebergarden.
Yeah.
Did you ever experiment with doing a dried version of that? Because I used that a lot and really enjoyed it. I thought that was a great use.
The Mango Madness came from an isolate in the Evergarden blend had like a couple of strains in it, and the Mango Madness was one of the isolates from that blend. So we've carried on the lineage of the Evergarden, but it wasn't the main strain. It was like the second or the third biggest, you know, most concentrated in that blend.
That's really interesting, right? Like, so as a follow-on question, Evergarden has always been well known for accentuating bitterness.
Yeah, so that's like the primary, or like the most, the most dominant of those strains, and that was probably the most negative part about that strain, was that people got, like, if they used like bittering hops, or maybe they used like too much aroma hops, they would get too much bitterness, and it didn't really suit the style, because it was like quite tropical fruits, quite you know, like, and then if it's like overly bitter, it's because like people were mostly using it for like East Coast IPAs, right? So then if they were getting like really strong bitterness, even though like the IBUs were technically 0, or, you know, they didn't have any bittering hops, but they were getting really bitter beers, that was probably the problem with that blend.
So that's been engineered out of what is now the Mango Madness strain.
Not really, because we kind of, it's not really the Evergarden strain anymore, because it's like it's not the main strain in it, but it does have some of the, I'd say, like the positive flavor contributions, but not any of the negative ones. So it's kind of like the better version of it, but engineered would be more looking at like genetically modified, which is like still banned in the EU, banned in UK. It'd be more like the US gene editing.
So it's
right, yeah. Sorry, that was a poor use of choice of words, I think there. Yeah, that's just quite interesting, because I think I used Mango Madness, and I was hypothesizing that it was a Evergarden of Evergarden origin. And I will say I used some bittering hops, and I did get quite. I got a very. Did I use any bittering hops? I'm not sure I did actually, but maybe I did. No, I did. and I ended up with like a lot of bitterness in it, and I was wondering whether there was still something in there that kind of contributed to that, or it could have just been my shitty brewing.
I can't comment on that, but there shouldn't be any bittering contributions from that.
Cool. So you like definitively have like confirmed that it's not going to accentuate bitterness in a way that Evergarden did.
Yeah,
we're pushing Mango Madness towards the NEPA end of the IPA spectrum, and there's plenty of I've tasted plenty of soft, juicy NEPAs with it that aren't overpoweringly bitter. Yeah,
I actually did a commercial brew collaboration with with Brewpoint, and it was as soft and juicy as you could possibly be. So to the point where their version was even less bitter than the one I did. That was their recipe was based on. So it went well in that case. So,
I'll put it down to my poor choice of dry hopping temperature.
We get sent that Mango Magnus. I'm sure I've still to use it. I think it might be in the fridge actually.
That'll be episode 103.
Probably not. Probably around about 108. 103 is Braybrook.
We did get sent some. I think Stiffo or Reiki sent us some.
Because was that with the high voltage yeast that we got?
I've got high voltage.
And I used a high voltage to make the best imperial stout ever. Well, it was my first and it was amazing. Like, and the high voltage ripped through it, and it was great. So yeah, cool.
Good.
Right, gentlemen. At this point, I'm going to call a halt to this rambling conversation. I absolutely adore Pineapple Passion. I think it is a brilliant yeast.
Great yeast.
I think it does exactly what it says on the tin. And I think it's something that people really should. And I'm not just saying this because these boys are on the podcast, okay? You know me. If something don't work, I'm going to call it out. But the bottom line is, this yeast is amazing.
Yeah, if it hadn't worked in the beers, we'd be asking you guys what we did wrong and how we could have fixed it, rather than
imagine that would have been really embarrassing.
Would have been awkward, but that is what would have happened. So
I'm glad it was smooth sailing.
And my massive apologies to Phil, because I wanted to send you the beers, man. I really did. And
if you send us your address, Phil, we'll send you them. Retrospectively, you can still try them. So
that's okay. I think I've gone over to UK soon, so maybe Paul can keep one can for me.
Yeah, well, I'll tell you what we'll do then. We'll send a bunch more to Paul, and he can save us some bottles, mate. You can get absolutely hammered on your last day.
Yeah.
It's not a safe space over here. Yeah.
But
we've got Paul's address now, so we can just keep sending him WHC.
Yeah, absolutely.
All the problems. Yeah.
No. All the awesomeness.
Yeah. So, guys, can I just say that is episode 102 in the bag?
Yeah,
we've done it. We've reached 102 episodes and we've not died. So yeah, let's move this one to an after party, gentlemen. I'm going to post in the private chat that we have on StreamYard a link to the meeting. You might want to open that now. Don't enter your microphone and everything on it. But the wonderful thing is, we've had 4 amazing beers. Paul, admittedly, has only had 3 amazing beers. Phil's had a beer that none of us have had, and I'm slightly jealous. But the wonderful thing is, we have proved that Pineapple Passion does indeed induce pineapple flavours within the beer. Yep. Very, very happy about that. And also, we've proved that it works in a range of styles, which is, again, really, really good information. Owen, your beer was amazing. Tricky, your beer was amazing. Andy, your beer was completely by accident, but it was also amazing.
Chris, your beer was also super amazing.
My beer was okay, yeah.
No, it was actually...
We finished on a high, definitely.
Yeah, we did,
It was good, it was
yours
good.
Was so much flavour.
And Paul gets to get hammered on Monday when the additional beers arrive at his house. So, the world is a wonderful thing. So we're going to stop right here. Guys, please don't leave the chat. To everybody who supported us through 102 episodes, to everybody who's a Patreon, to everybody who comes onto our Facebook page and says anything at all, we appreciate you very, very much. We hope that we're bringing you the content that you want to have. And based on today, oh wait, there Ron's asked, is there a hop edition WHC discount code so I can buy Pineapple Passion?
No.
Is Martin listening to this, or one of
Already?
the
Well, the malt miller was in
Probably.
earlier on.
yes, that would be a good demanded of them.
Demand
I
it
say,
of them.
Yeah.
I'm gonna be
The other
honest,
thing is
well
the
delegated, Phil.
the other thing is that is floating around is Pineapple Passion T-shirts
No
that
way.
we've
Where's
been
mine?
giving out a lot
Where's
as
mine?
well.
Oh my god, I've got one and I forgot to put it on for this
You
episode.
fucking bellend.
I have
There it is.
Yeah. Show them the back, Paul.
Yeah, the back is that's why it's called psychedelic yeast. Look at the back of this t-shirt. Now you'll know.
Here we go. Paul's getting stripped off on a
I
podcast.
know, I wasn't expecting this bit.
Yeah, Saturday night.
Put some sexy music on.
Check it. What did you?
Oh,
No,
nice.
yes.
I got it in the raffle at Love and Beer. But I was very, very, very drunk at that point, so I actually forgot about
I mean, I'd quite like one. Just saying.
I can't believe you didn't wear it, Chick.
Yeah, we can.
I literally just forgot completely.
We can make that happen.
But yeah,
Make it happen,
Nice.
dude. I need one of those.
Thank you.
I have to say, I've really enjoyed this podcast. There's been some really awesome information come out.
yeah.
And for
thanks
those
very
of
much,
you
guys.
who haven't used WHC yeast, you really need to.
Yeah, you're missing
Especially hopping pills. Demand
Yeah.
hopping pills.
it. Chris, we better not try and push this too much because we're not going to be able to buy any from the malt miller.
This is true.
Wait, see, we'll go and get our 10 packs,
mediocre
they'll be
yeast
gone.
at best.
Oh, I'm gonna have to
Right.
try this Einstein stuff next.
Anyway,
we're gonna jump to the after party, guys. So thanks for joining us. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for listening to this podcast. We appreciate it. And Phil and Paul, thank you both.
Yeah,
We've
thank
had
you very much.
We've had an
Thank you.
Irishman and a Scotsman and another a Welshman and another Scotsman, and somebody from down
Thank you.
south and Tricky, and somebody from God's country on the same podcast, and it's been amazing.
Thank you.
Right, we're going to jump off. Gents, don't leave this window. We love you all. We'll see you for episode 103, which is Braybrook.
Oh my
Cheers,
God,
everybody.
yeah.
And that's next week. Don't miss that
Amazing.
one.
Cheers, guys.
See you
Cheers.
later, boys.
Bye.
Bye.